This is his cameo.
Looks
and he's very happy to be here, aren't you?
And how old is Ollie?
Say hello. Hello.
Hello.
He is 10 weeks.
10 weeks. So he's going to get big. That's bigger than I thought. Right?
Yeah.
He'll be, what, like 30, 40 pounds?
He'll get to be like 25. 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20, 25.
That's good size.
Yeah, but he is a sweet little
Snuggling. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, so, we just thought we would do... I'll edit in this somewhere, but...
Yeah.
Say hello.
Yeah, get his face up there real close.
Say, hello, my name is Ollie.
Speak into the mic. Is Ollie tired? So how much energy does Ollie have? Is he like...
A lot,
okay.
But he's pretty mellow right now. Top shelf word salad.
In which we talk about Canadian truckers. The capital city of Canada.
Ottawa, what are you doing?
Ottawa.
I've been to Ottawa. It's a beautiful
have you?
city.
I never have been.
It's gorgeous. It's really nice.
It's embarrassing to admit that I didn't know it was the capital city until earlier today.
Oh, that's all right.
I would have guessed Toronto.
Yeah. Or Montreal or something.
Yeah.
Nope. Ottawa. When we were there, it happened to be there. I forget which sesquicentennial, or I don't remember. Yeah. It was some tennial.
Some round number.
Yeah. They projected all this stuff onto Parliament. That was like this, the history of Canada, and animation. It was amazing.
That's
it really
cool.
Was.
How long ago was it? Was it recent? Well,
it was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. I think that's right. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been. I've been to Canada a couple of times. Toronto.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. I've been to, I guess, Toronto a few times, Montreal, Ottawa, and then Vancouver a bunch of times.
Okay.
And in Victoria, the island.
So you're the authority among the two of us.
Please. I don't know. But, I mean, as far as just what the fuck is going on? You know, I mean, the whole trucker lockdown business and the emergency measures.
Yeah. I'm excited to...
enough, which were, you know, what was the extension of what his dad had done, you know, with the war measures in 1970.
No, explain that.
So Trudeau's dad in 1970 put in place the war measures because of Quebec separatists who, were posing a danger to Canadian safety. So now the next time it happens is under a different and more expanded act that includes financial ruin that his son puts into place.
Wow, I didn't know that first piece.
Yeah.
So you're saying, there have been some expanded security measures put in place, emergency measures, and you're saying this is the first time since the 70s?
Yeah, not only... Well, and it's the first time this specific act has ever been used. But the act that it's essentially... So this is the Emergencies Act. I forget the exact title of it. But the act before was the War something act. God, now everything's flying out of my head. But anyway, it was that's the last time anything was done. And with this, the fact that they were going after people's financial well-being, freezing their bank accounts. I mean, this is direct from WikiLeaks shit, you know? I mean, it's really, it's kind of scary. Just because that really hasn't been done. It's a way of circumventing having to take someone to court. You just ruin them.
You take their money.
I mean, that's essentially, yeah. You
freeze it.
You know, you blackball them from economic fluidity or something, or liquidity, and they end up having no means of doing anything. And then you have Julian Assange in the Ecuadorian frickin' embassy in London for years on end, losing his mind.
Yeah, it is crazy. But I'm excited to talk about it now because, well, there are a couple of reasons. So it seems like the chapter's over. It just finished. So we have this like immediate perspective looking back on it. That's number one. Number two, I know you've been following this kind of as it's developed, but I didn't. I really wasn't paying any attention to it until this past week. And the way I approached it, so I know very little about it, the basics, but the way I approached it is I went to one news source and I started with the most recent article written about the whole thing, and then I read backwards. So the first thing I read was their most expanded up-to-date reporting. But what was interesting about that is you get a sense for how the reporting developed over time. And the source I chose was the Wall Street Journal, which is it's my go-to. If you have to pick one media source, one news outlet to go to, I find it to be the best way to get the most balanced coverage. Even though it is right-leaning, they do the best job of journalism as it's constructed today, in my opinion. So that's all I know about it is the Wall Street Journal articles going back to when it started. But that's why I'm excited to talk to you about it, because you can expand on my understanding of it.
Yeah, I just did the YouTube kind of reverse carpet bombing. I'm absorbing from it,
Yeah, the hole, falling into the hole. So what's it all about? So take us through the timeline.
Okay, so the truckers decide, this mandate stuff has got to go, and essentially, the way it came about is that Trudeau, brought about this mandate that they had to be vaxxed so many times in order to do their jobs, and did that right at the end of all of this, where like other provinces are relinquishing the mandates, and he does it not just to, but affecting the truckers in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been the people who, have been on the front lines bringing everybody the goods, alone in their trucks, making it happen. And they've been heroes in that sense. And now suddenly he's going to vilify them. And then, not just them. On the floor of the Canadian Parliament, he was basically called out by this woman who happens to be Jewish, and she said, who can justify the extreme measures that this guy is taking? When did he lose his way? She's saying this to the speaker, right? And Trudeau's response is, well, if our conservative friends or members of parliament want to stand with people who wave swastikas. So he's calling this Jewish woman a Nazi sympathizer. And the idea of there being Nazis at this thing is ludicrous. There's like one image of a Nazi flag at this thing. And
at the trucker, at the site of the protest?
At the rally, yeah. But there was also, I'm trying to recall the image in my mind, but there was a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. There were a few different flags involved in that. So the Nazi thing could very well have been a statement saying this is what our government's becoming, right?
Right.
Misinterpreted and then used against them. And of course, anybody that brings up any Nazi anything is an idiot at this point.
It's funny you say that. So whenever I'm in a philosophical debate or an argument with somebody, I always, or when two people are in a debate, the person that goes to Hitler or Nazi first loses the debate automatically in my mind.
Exactly.
Like you've lost.
You're done. Yeah. You reached for the Nazi card. You know, you pulled out the N-word.
Right.
We're done. That, I mean, and then, you know, this is a total aside, but you have Putin talking about Ukraine, bringing up wanting to, like, denazify Ukraine as part of the reason that they invaded Ukraine. Now, it's been like 70 some years, right, since the end of that entire conflict that we know as World War II, where everybody banded against the Nazis, essentially. And who would think, you know, these fucking Nazis are everywhere.
Yeah,
they're in Canada.
It's the great evil.
Argentina.
You can point to them, right? It's the other. It's they're not us. They're bad. It's the shorthand for they're bad.
The Nazi thing is just it's this, you know, it's essentially like the wall, you know, like you can't go beyond that wall, right? So you just point to the wall and say that's the bad wall. That's, you know, that's where everything essentially stops conceptually. That's where the debate stops,
right?
Yeah, you just hit the wall. Yeah, yep. And a lot of people just run headlong into the wall, you know, juggernaut style, just slamming their head into that wall, and the wall does not give.
So anyway, there are some weird things, though. So not weird. There are some interesting things to me. So number one, the image of the Canadians, right? They have this stereotype of being nice to everyone and accommodating and not aggressive and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I wonder about like the protest itself, and I'm wondering how it compares to what was going on in, say, Seattle a few years ago, where, you know,
with the Chaz
fires
thing,
and the Chaz thing. Like, do you think it was kind of a subdued sort of protest, or was it nasty? Did it get nasty?
No, from what I've seen, in terms of footage, and from what I've heard in terms of people that went, including a guy who was talking, I don't remember his name, but he was talking about his mom who loved the CBC and just believed everything the CBC says, right? And it went to this, you know, ended up in Ottawa and kind of just went to check out the protest and was astonished that everyone was like happy and nice, and she didn't come across anybody that was nasty to her, and people were just barbecuing, and there were like the kids and the little bouncy house things, you know, and it was very, you know, it was like family day in the park, just, you know. But I mean, I'm sure there's also many aspects of this would be very different from other people's points of view. So this is just one anecdotal example, but I mean, what's his name? There's a guy who was basically like the speaker for this entire thing. Oh, I want to say Ted Madsen, but I think that's wrong. Anyway,
I don't know it. He was the voice of the truckers that all came together,
right?
Organized the Facebook presence and all that.
Yeah. I'll put his name up. He was asked a question by a journalist, and this was fantastic. And the journalist said, "Well, didn't you think that things could go to this place where, you know, you'd be getting arrested en masse and the cops would come after you? And didn't you think it could go here?" And his response is, "Well, tell me what laws we broke, other than like traffic infractions, you know." Right. And the guy had nothing to say because they, as far as I know, didn't. And then, did you see the thing with the cops on the horses stomping that woman?
No, I didn't see that, no.
So this woman gets trampled. This woman who's like part of the indigenous population of Canada, right? And she gets stomped on by a horse. And there was a woman who's a reporter for, it's called Rebel Media in Canada. A cop shot her more or less point blank with a tear gas canister in the leg. Oh. And this is all captured on video, right?
Right.
And then, I mean, the cops kind of went berserk. It's like, Canadians are very nice, but the cops are holding back this like tidal wave of like repressed nasty.
Well, that's why, I mean, I hate to frame it up like, here's the stereotype, here's what every Canadian's like. But the reason I asked it that way is I wondered about the element of violence. And so those are a couple of examples you said that came from the cops.
Yeah.
But I have to think if stuff like that's going down and you're in a pretty big crowd, that there would be retaliation from the group that could escalate. I didn't see anything, but
I don't know of anything. I mean, I'm sure some cops got, shoved around, but as far as I know, I don't know of any.
Nobody's getting shot. No shops are getting burned down. Nobody's getting like beaten up by mobs.
And there's not that embarrassing moment. I forget I think it might have been in Kenosha, where, and I think it was MSNBC, where that guy is, standing there saying, well, it's a mostly peaceful protest here in Kenosha, and everything's burning behind him. It was ludicrous. We're just busting out the marshmallows. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But so I didn't see anything that was like that. And then the government swooping in, basically destroying all these funding platforms. First GoFundMe, completely caved, and then Give, Send, Go, I think was the other one. They also had everything frozen. And then all of the people who donated were doxxed by that lunatic that did this little weird... Did you see the TikTok video of this guy? The guy that claims he hacked all this. He might have a movement disorder. I don't know. But the whole time he's doing this weird, he just looks like he's kind of gyrating around and he's yelling at the camera.
You got to expand on what this is. So you said doxed and you said TikTok, and I am not familiar with either of these. Well, I know what TikTok is, but not very well. So explain.
So this guy hacked both. I think both. Maybe it's just Give, Send, Go. Hacked it and then released the names of all the people.
I got you.
And the media picked up on that. Now, the entire process of that is illegal, right?
Right.
The media should not have picked up on any of it, other than to say this illegal thing happened, right?
Right.
But
and
names,
the specific names are the people that ended up getting
donating.
The people that donated, and ultimately there was a financial sort of restriction placed on some individuals. Are you saying that it was a group of those people that had been outed by this? This
and then
person?
Some of them by people who were, sympathetic to Trudeau's approach. Then, vandalized some of the a woman's. I think it was a restaurant.
Okay.
Anyway, end up, trying to ruin their businesses because they donated to this trucker convoy thing. And there was one woman who I guess donated $50, and her bank accounts were frozen by the government.
Which is ultimately what they did. So when I stepped into that range of articles from the Wall Street Journal, it was a couple of days ago. And the way that I read it was, I had so many questions about it. The way that I read it was there had been the protest going on. The police had been instructed to be tough on the protesters. But at some point, the chief of police, or whoever it is, said, look, we're not doing this anymore. This isn't working. And it was at that point that Trudeau invoked these emergency orders, which were essentially economic sort of measures to harm people's ability to access their funds.
Right.
Do I have that right?
Yep. And then, the first guy, chief of police guy, quit. And then somebody else took his place, and he is an absolute zealot who's standing there saying, if you've even come to the protests, we will find you. We will economically sanction you.
Right, And that's what's interesting to me is if you've got the head of the police who's quitting, presumably because he sees how intractable the situation is, and probably understands both points of view. And that guy quits, and then there's just another head that pops up, and it's somebody that's more severe.
That's the thing that was my big takeaway from this. Okay, is that if you have a government that's willing to use its governmental power, and even just the head of a government that's willing to use the governmental power in a nefarious way, there will be plenty of people in that governmental structure that will go along with it.
Yeah.
They will fold, or they'll just go with the flow, or whatever you want to say about it. And all the way down to the police then roughing up fellow Canadians.
Yeah. And in Canada, there's something about it being in Canada that I just can't get over the significance of. Like, when stuff like this happens in America, I feel like you just get this head bashing. Right. You do get these moments of violence, not just in America, but in other places in the world. But in Canada, it just seems more unexpected. And like we were saying earlier that maybe it didn't play out as violently, and that's more in line with that sort of reasonable approach that Canadians have. Yeah. For example, I think there was a poll that was like, are the truckers right or not, basically? And I think Canada's split 50-50. This is not like there's a mandate to take unprecedented action.
Right.
People are like, well, they raise good points. There are good points on the other side. People are not overwhelmingly opposed or in favor of the protest.
Well, and the Emergencies Act is about there being a threat to the sovereign aspects of Canada as a nation. It's not.
It's an economic thing, though, right? So if it's truckers, that's got to be the backbone of their consumer economy, just like it is here. So I could see it being an economic concern, an economic threat to the ability of Canada to function. Yeah, and I think that's the truckers flexing to some extent, right? Yeah. And Canada, by the way, has been throughout this whole thing has been super aggressive about kind of lockdowns and getting ahead of the pandemic where they could. I mean, they're the ones that closed their borders for much longer than America did. I know some people in Canada that basically they were in their houses. They weren't even like kind of outside for long periods of time while Delta was kind of breaking. So it's like, I mean, I can understand how that could come to a head after 2 years, especially like you said, if you're working in the front lines and the mandate comes out and it's like you can't work if you don't get vaccinated, if you don't get boosted.
Well, and if any of them had the virus and then they say, I don't want this booster because I feel I don't need it. I mean, there's a solid argument there,
Oh, so, I think it's becoming a de facto. I have to tell you, I think we have passed the point where people are just moving on.
Yeah, yeah.
Like everybody, no matter what if you believe like I shouldn't be vaccinated or you must be vaccinated or anything, I just get the sense that everybody's like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I think we're beyond that point. At least here in America, here in the Midwest, but. I don't know globally, but it's just because it's dragging on so long, and it
is way too long, and I don't know. My experience at the beginning of this thing, going into the homes of people with COVID, who and these are mental health patients, and giving them injections in their homes, and this is like February, March, April, etc. of 2020, with like this total bullshit PPE on.
Did you have like the big like basically
I had a face shield, and like but then a paper gown, I just throw out and doing that, I don't know, 70 or 80 times. And the entire thing was so wrought with paranoia and
it was
this intense nervousness. And now at the other end of this, watching Canada basically devolve into this kind of fascistic shit. And it is, saying not only can you not protest, but we're going to stop you and take your money. The idea of fascism in Canada is, that's only something that South Park would have tackled 5 years ago.
Right. It would be a premise.
And it would have been funny as hell, Fascist Canada.
and it's coming from, the parties on the left, right? Trudeau is liberal dude.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what makes it, that's one of the things that makes it very hard to grapple with. Like, it
all
does
around.
feel like fascism, but it's coming from a liberal place.
Yeah.
It's the police seem to recognize that we should do something different before the administration did. This was interesting. It was like, once the police said, we're not going to move forward and police this stuff, Trudeau dropped at least for a short period of time, dropped the emergency measure, according to an article that I read. And the Parliament at that point said, we're going to extend your access to it for another 60 days. And then, like, the next day or 2 days later, Trudeau
I didn't
reenacted
know
it.
that. Wow.
And again, I read this
that.
series of articles, so I tried to go very carefully from most recent, but that's something that, maybe we could look at, see if I'm right about that. But it felt like the police changed their stance. Trudeau changed his stance. The Parliament said, no, this is the stance, and then Trudeau came back with it. And ultimately, it was yesterday, I think, that the whole thing broke up, right? Didn't it?
It did. Yeah, he basically rescinded it or whatever. And now a lot of, like, there was the premier of Alberta who was asked about it, and he was just like, this is the most idiotic overreach. This will be remembered in history, along with, like, as one of the greatest mistakes in Canadian political history.
It feels like it. It really does.
It really does, because it's such ridiculous overreach. And as far as overreach of this type goes, and all of the ways that they went about it, it basically, anybody who is conspiracy minded is running in circles saying, I told you so. This is just the beginning. This is how this will function. If there is dissent, they will just try to quash it while ruining you financially.
It's your credit score,
Right.
That's the number. Pay attention. What's your credit score? Has it dropped this in the last year?
Yeah, and the
why?
idea of the social credit score, like in China, right? So
is that a legit thing? Like, I've never heard of that. So in addition to your financial well-being, there's some measure in place.
Yeah, basically, like how good of a citizen you are,
Ooh.
your citizen score.
God, that makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, me too, man. Because it's all these different ways of having mechanisms by which people can be judged that are inherently manipulable by a central governmental body.
Side note: did you ever see this show called Black Mirror?
Yeah, I've seen a couple.
I think one of those. There's an episode in the first season that is kind of like that. There's this Facebook social app, and it's the story of this woman who's kind of like on the verge of being a low rating versus a high rating, and it's kind of fascinating.
Nice.
Anyway,
the only reason I watched Black Mirror is because there was one called Bandersnatch.
That was the movie, right?
Yeah, was it an actual movie? It was a movie length. I don't remember.
I think it was movie length after their second season. Maybe. What is it about that word?
Oh, that comes from a Lewis Carroll poem.
Oh, does it? I didn't know.
Yeah, Jabberwocky.
Okay.
It's one of the few poems I've ever memorized.
All right, go.
No, come on. 'Twas brillig in the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe, all mimsy were the borogroves and the mome-rass outgrabe. Beware the jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jub burb, and fear the frumious bandersnatch.
Wow.
He took his vorpal sword in hand, along the manxome foe he saw it. So stood he by the tum-tum tree, and he stood awhile and thought. Hast thou... I think that's all I can do. But it was amazing.
That was completely impromptu, by the way. I just want you to know I never knew you even memorized that poem. So that's kind of amazing.
Yeah. So stood he by and then he took his vorpal sword in hand, along the mix what we saw it. So I thought, and as if in uffish thought he stood, the jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood and burbled as it came. 1, 2, through and through the vorpal blade went snicker snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. Hast thou slain the jabberwock, my son? Come to me, O beamish boy. Callooh, callay, O frabjous day, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogroves and the mome-rass outgrabe. That's it.
You have to find out a way to drop that mic.
Right. It even clicked. Perfect. The wonderful thing about that poem is that so many of the words don't make any sense.
Right.
He just made them up, you know. Come to me, O beamish boy. Callooh, callay, O frabjous day. He chortled in his joy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wow, I got us off.
Total aside.
There. Sorry. Yeah. It was good though. I enjoyed
ridiculous aside. But man, well, it's kind of fitting for there to be some like nonsensical monster whiffling through the tulgey wood. And it's Trudeau-a-walkie.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, this whole thing is I really, it upset me tremendously just because it just seems so fascistic. It really did.
And I, as I know you know, I don't really follow politics and news very closely just because it's like I don't really have any control over it, so I may as well not bother. But I've always had a pretty good impression of Trudeau. I really always thought of, of him. He's been there a while, right?
Yeah.
And, I don't have that impression anymore. Like, it really concerns me whether he's really in charge of it or not, or whether it's financial concerns, financial interests that are backing the government. I don't know. It feels very American in that sense. The special interests and the the economics of it all.
It does.
Cynical, but
no, it's not. I think it does. That I've never liked him, and it's because he just seems like he's catering to people. He's just saying things people want to hear, and what he thinks is popular in the moment. I mean, I don't know, but my opinion means fuck all in any of this. But there was, that bill C-16 in Canada that said that, you couldn't, it was actually like, because I think it was considered hate speech. So it's a crime and you could be fined for calling someone by the wrong pronouns.
Oh, yes. I remember this. Yeah.
Now, I had a patient a while ago who we're talking on the phone, and this patient said, I just want you to know that I want to be referred to by these pronouns. Right? And they told me what the pronouns were. And first of all, I let them know in the documentation that I do, I literally say patient every time. I don't use, because I want to be absolutely clear who I'm talking about, because this stuff is terse as hell. I try to I don't want to spend all day documenting, so I just cook it down and make it as obvious as possible who it is I'm talking about at any given time. Because when, somebody's parents come into something and etc. But at the same time, the way this person spoke to me about this, they wanted me to know they wanted me to refer to them by their pronouns. Now, this is a very strange thing to do in a conversation that is only going to be between two people. So this is through and telemedicine, right? Because I would have to refer to them in the third person to use their pronouns while I'm talking to them.
It's guidance for how you should be referring to them in a conversation with someone else.
Yes.
Like by definition.
Right.
I'd never thought about that aspect.
Yeah.
Like that's always the case.
Yeah, it has to be.
When you specify your pronouns, you're specifying how you want to be seen. I think that's what it is. It's how you want to be seen, but what you're saying is when you speak of me to a third party, make sure that party knows how I want to be seen. Which I guess I understand, but it's if you're in a one-on-one conversation,
it's a weird thing to do,
where you're not going to be talking about that person with someone else.
Right. And I would, if somebody wants me to refer to them as whatever it is, I will. I'm happy to do that. I mean, it doesn't bother me at all. But with that Bill C-16 thing, and Trudeau was totally behind this thing, it's basically the government telling you how you have to talk, what you have to say. Right. That's right away is like, this doesn't sit with me,
But isn't this one of those things, though, where, so the idea is abhorrent. You should be able to say whatever. We've talked about free speech and all that a lot, but how do you even fucking police something like that? Like, so there's a law. You can't use the wrong pronoun. Like, how do you police that? How do you account for just accidents that happen because of ways that you've been programmed to think, or ways that you just kind of naturally think about things? Like,
well, and so once the government starts telling you what you can and can't say, or what you have to say, how does it just stop there? I mean, when do certain words become illegal?
Well, yeah.
I don't know. Like maybe, I don't know, the word illegal. I don't know. Just, I mean,
illegal itself.
Yeah. I'm joking, but like...
Well, I'll tell you something. This is kind of half a joke. I think it's actually half true. I think there will be a time when it will be taboo to say this, the N-word.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like, not the actual word itself, but the phrase that's referring to the word itself.
Yes.
I can imagine... I can imagine I'm going to get skewered at some point because somebody's going to have this video of me actually saying said phrase.
I can't believe you said the N-word. Don't you know you're just supposed to say the
I didn't say the N-word. Oh, you said the actual N-word.
You're just supposed to say the
And even that.
Yeah, then 10 years later.
And I don't mean to make light of this at all. I really don't. This is the way that I feel like these things evolve. The point you were just making is when you talk about, forcing people to speak in a certain way, how far does that go? That's why I brought it up. I'm not making a joke out of it.
No, I know. And there's a reason the idea of freedom of speech is so fundamental to a free society, in my opinion. Like you have to, if you can speak your mind and not feel afraid to, you can say things that can change things. And
you can say things that turn out to be harmful too. I mean, it's not all like, it's not, I'm with you. Being able to speak, having the right to free speech, to me, is critically important because of what you said. But I recognize that people can say nasty things that can get other people riled up. People can say things that can harm other people, like physically end up harming other people. It's possible. Yeah. But on balance, I think the right to be able to make the expression is the important thing.
Yeah.
Because we all police each other, right? right? If you say some real stupid shit, not very many people are going to really be listening to it.
Exactly. You're most likely going to be ignored. Somebody might be upset, but I mean, it's just this absolutely age-old concept of safety versus liberty. How often did you hear Trudeau say, "We're trying to keep Canadians safe," from these misogynistic, horrible, Nazi-sympathizing, baby-eating truckers, Yeah. He didn't say baby eating. I'm kidding. For anybody who wants to take
you're free to say what you want.
Right. I'm currently anyway. 10 years from now, say baby eating. Whew. That's like the N-word back in the day. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I just.
What about? I have a question. So there was a suggestion, maybe a subtle suggestion in the articles I read, that the people who are employed as truckers in Canada are sort of the correlates of, like, folks in rural areas in America, the red states. They, like, the truckers sort of equate to Trumpers. Like, do you think there's anything to that? Or
yes, absolutely. There was a guy who is the Minister of Justice, I think, in Canada, who basically said, if you're a Trump supporter and you donated, we may be coming after you. Like,
so, not just donating, but if we're going to do a two-part test. If you support Trump and you donated, now you're on the list.
Right. Yeah. And like I don't know if it was you should be worried about your money. I think he said you should be worried about your money, meaning it would be frozen and taken. I think that's what he said. Not so much.
Again, that's the bottom line of this whole thing. I'm telling you, this is economic.
Well, but it's also in a country that didn't fucking have Trump. It's just a mindset, right? That's what made me think of it, was what you were saying.
Right. If you're a Trump supporter in a country that didn't even have to bother to vote for Trump or Biden,
right?
You told somebody at the bar you kind of liked what Trump stood for. Now you're on the list.
Not you're on the list, buddy.
Wow.
I mean, what?
So it's over. So the thing's over, meaning the truckers were there in the Capitol for a few weeks, several weeks, kind of shut things down in the city. Things escalated to the point that we talked about. Financial restrictions were put into place, and basically the truckers left under that threat, and then the emergency measures were dropped. So the bottom line is, the real politic of this, the bottom line is flexing the financial threat muscle got the thing solved.
Yeah.
I don't know if solved is the right word, but got the protest diffused.
Although the guy who I mentioned earlier, whose name I still don't freaking remember, he did say that his suggestion, he said he wasn't telling anybody what to do, but his suggestion was for everybody to just go, because it doesn't make any sense for people to stick around and be punching bags for the police. Like he said, I feel like we've made our statement, and let's just go. This is the guy whose response to the reporter was, what law do we break? Right?
What law do we break?
And I mean, I
don't know if that's true, or if that's just like it's what you say on the way out after you've lost. But what a reasonable attitude. In either case, it sounds very.
Yeah.
I hate to keep saying that, but
I absolutely adore the whole Canadian thing. I think it's fantastic. Like, just even the fact that they are perceived as this, like they kind of take the middle path.
Yeah,
they're like the Buddhas of the Great White North.
Right.
It's fabulous.
It is nice.
I envy it tremendously, and I respect it tremendously. Like, the middle ground. But so we'll see. I mean, this Trudeau may have just handed himself his own ass. You know.
I mean, I kind of hope so. In a situation like this where somebody oversteps and maybe gets what they wanted in the short run. I hate that situation. I hate that. So it's always so nice to like see when the after effect of that is some sort of downfall or some sort of backlash or something. Like it's like a bully kind of thing. You just hate to see anybody bully anybody else.
Exactly. It is that.
And I feel like that's what it is. I am sure there are people that, of course there are people that see it the opposite way that I'm talking about it.
Oh, sure.
And might say that, the protest itself was the bullying tactic and Trudeau just stood up to them. I'm sure that's the other way to look at it. But
I think so too.
I have a hard time seeing it that way.
I do too. And I would love to see something by someone who, that was their argument and they put up a very cogent argument for that position. I would love to see that, but I have not. And I've searched. I've actively searched for that.
I haven't. Yeah.
Like somebody, come up with yes, this is damaging things in the short term financially, but they're trying to. It didn't
damage infrastructure in the city. What we said. I mean, no riots, no right. What it damaged was the ability to distribute goods across the country, and it damaged the economics of Ottawa itself. Right, the ability of that city to function as it normally does.
Inconvenienced, people in Ottawa.
But yeah, you're right. That makes me next want to ask, or Google or search for what harm was done. Like, because there is an implication that if you shut down a city and you choke out these trade routes, that there would be some sort of violent backlash.
Yeah.
So,
but I don't think they, from what I've been able to parse anyway, I don't think they actually choked anything. I think they were like just a kind of a big pain in the ass for a few weeks.
But when I say choke, I mean they're also the people that instead of having their trucks parked in Ottawa, they presumably would be transferring goods.
Oh no, I know,
for the consumer economy. So it would be choking out like the distribution network.
Right, sure. I don't know. I really haven't seen anything. Like, you would think if somebody had a counter argument, they would be bringing you statistical data on how much they actually had a negative impact and choked out the supply chain for that.
It wasn't a story. It wasn't a storyline in the articles I read. You're right.
Yeah, I haven't seen that at all, and that would be the point for being anti trucker freedom convoy people. That would be the point. Like, look what you're doing to the country. Look what you're doing to our supply chain. Look what you're doing to us economically. Why the hell are you doing this? But I haven't seen that. But maybe I just...
It really did sound more like just like it's hard to drive around the city.
Right.
That's kind of what it sounded like.
I almost forgot. There is a parliamentarian woman who... I don't remember her name. I can remember everybody's phone number, but I can't remember a goddamn name to save my life. But, and this is unbelievably fantastic because it's incredibly hard to believe anybody would go here, but she did. She said that the phrase used online, and I think this came from a 4chan thing, which makes it even more beautiful in a way because she bought it. But she said the phrase honk honk, meaning pro-trucker, because they were honking their horns, and that's part of what was annoying people in Ottawa. Honk honk. The reason they're using that is because the double H, which is reminiscent of Heil Hitler. This woman said this.
Honk, honk.
Honk, honk. Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler.
Which you realize makes
I don't know
every fucking goose in the world a Nazi. And what were they doing?
Wow.
They were goose stepping. It all so clear.
Oh, dude. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Honk, honk. Heil Hitler. Let's go, Brandon.
Honk, honk, Heil Hitler. Boom. I'm done. I need to get off the planet.
Well, you'd like to hope that's whoever she was. You'd like to hope that's the equivalent of like a junior representative in the House. That's
I've
not
got too
going
much
to be very long.
Crap on my desk to look it up, but yeah, no, I'll put up who she is in the thing.
Yeah,
because it's just too. I mean, I'm sorry, but that what that makes me think of? Dr. Strangelove.
What specifically?
The names and like the guy who's the one that sends the air attack wing to nuke Russia. His name's Jack D. Ripper.
Oh yeah.
It's so over the top you can't believe it. I mean, it's that kind of satire. Like, if Kubrick and crew had been able to satirize this Canadian thing, Hong Kong,
they would have come up with that. They would have come up with that as a part of the fiction of it.
Movie. Yes,
you're right.
And the president, did I tell you this before? The president in Dr. Strangelove is Merkin Muffley.
No.
Do you know what a Merkin is?
Yeah, I do. We'll do another talk on what Merkins are.
Okay. We'll leave that out of this.
We'll take a deep dive into the Merkin.
But then Muffley. I mean...
that was lost on me. I've seen that movie a couple of times too.
Merkin Muffley. God. Ugh, that movie's too good. It's all Terry Southern right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's probably good.
I think that's good. We went an hour. I thought it was going to be a half an hour. So.
Oh man, there's just so much. It's just too much. It's like it devolves into comedy. It becomes satire.
Well, I think it's sad. I think it's
sad
all over.
tire.
I really, dad tire. I think it's all over. I think it's done. I think, that's sad to me. Not that I really wanted there to be like a whole bunch of disruption and things to get nasty, but like it's just, if this is how it played out, and you went like, well, we got your bank account, and they went, well, we're done. I think that's what it's. I think it's gone from the headlines. We'll see.
I think Trudeau is fucked. I think he's going to be speared by the people around him who want him out, and they'll use this as a way of getting him out. I think he fucked himself. So at least
if they're 50-50, if Canadians are 50-50 divided on it, though,
yeah,
and maybe it's different now than it was a week ago or earlier this week, but
I wouldn't be surprised if once he put the emergency stuff into place, if a bunch of people didn't say, "Okay, hold on a minute,"
yeah,
this is overreacting. You're a lunatic. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting topic, though.
Oh, man. It really is. And it's also kind of terrifying. Because that is exactly what happened with WikiLeaks. They went after WikiLeaks, and they just made sure that PayPal and all of the different ways in which WikiLeaks got money were throttled. Like they went from $1 million to like $1,000 in terms of donations.
But it's different, I think, because there is an essential, potentially harmful crime at the base of WikiLeaks.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I mean, I understand why it was done, and I'm not.
I just mean the method by which they were shut down.
Yeah.
Not
But I might see. I'm not for that way of doing things. But if the guy in Canada said, "Show me what law I broke," right? That's a pretty compelling answer. Yeah. But if you say, among the documents that you released on WikiLeaks were the identities of agents undercover in foreign countries,
Yeah.
right, that could potentially die because of that. Like, that's a different conversation to me.
That
I can understand being creative about your means for kind of stopping that, or making sure that person is called on the carpet.
No, I know. I
not that I'm saying he has to be, but like,
no.
To me, that's the difference.
I completely agree, man, and I completely agree with the putting people in harm's way as being a means of shutting something down to get those people in a sense out of harm's way, right? Like, yeah. Or at least try. But that method as being an effective way of taking out an organization of people by stepping around the legal process because you don't want to take the time, and it being effective, that becomes a blueprint for another scenario, which this was.
Not just because it's a way of stepping around the law to address a group, but because it makes an individual like myself vulnerable. Right? Yeah. You just don't know. Like, is it because of X or X plus Y or X plus Y plus Z, or because I spit in public when I wasn't supposed to? Like,
exactly, jaywalking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But knowing the ability to do that is disconcerting.
Yeah, and probably if you're in a position where you think that, whoa, like from Trudeau's position, like this is they're trying to crash the economy. What am I going to do? Well, this means is available to me.
Yeah.
And maybe he really believed that. Maybe he's not the, Aquanet wearing douche, I think.
Wow.
No one's going to remember Aquanet.
Aquanet. That's a perfectly good late 80s reference.
Yes. If you need a flamethrower in a pinch, Aquanet.